The other thing, since we are talking about Fuente, this is one of my all-time favorites. The Hemingway line is a line from Arturo Fuente, and I believe it's got the Cameroon wrapper. And in the line, they make a whole bunch of different versions of it. So they make a short story, a classic, a signature, read between the lines, untold story, masterpiece, etc. It's a bestseller. But the weird thing is that the smallest is still the best. In certain cigars, I've noticed that people will ask me, hey, which one do you think is the best from Davidoff? For me, thinner from Davidoff is better. Just like from this line, even though people say, well, if I like the small one, I'm going to love the large cigar. Not always the case. It's just the amount of cigar that you have in it, leaves, will change. People don't think that the width, the size, the ring gauge of the cigar is going to change the taste, but it will. Like John and I, Illusion makes a 68, an 88, what is it, the MK12, the 888, the number 2, but John and I still like the 88, and the 68. And the 68. It doesn't matter. And I tell people, and people, oh, I don't really like it as much. I said, you have to experiment. The TAA cigar that I picked was the Padron Toro. And when he says TAA, I think it's Mike, is it Tobacco Association of America?
Yeah.
Yep. What they do is they release specific cigars that are only for people who are members. So this is an example of one. And I think we talked about it in our first video where it's kind of similar to the Imperial. With Padron, I think John and I typically like a bigger ring gauge from their cigars. I'm not saying normally like a monster long cigar, like their number 4, which is a beast. It's a great cigar. I like, but a bigger ring gauge from them. And this is kind of one of those, the Oliva V. I remember going to the last retail show that I went to, personally, was like 2008. And this cigar was so hot that the representative was like apologizing because they literally could not get them in stock, and people were all upset, getting all moist and teary-eyed. Hey, how come you don't have them? And I kept telling people it's not our fault. It's not like we don't want to carry them. They're back ordered. But this cigar, I kept recommending it, and my goal recently is to kind of go back and experiment with cigars. Not experiment, but retry. Go for it. Retry cigars that I've been recommending for a long time, but haven't necessarily tried in a while. And the Oliva V, for me, is a great cigar. I wouldn't really put it on the necessarily full end of the spectrum, but definitely, if you want to break down the categories further, kind of the fuller side of medium or something like that. Whereas this cigar, the short story, which is, by the way,
wouldn't take it out of the wrapper.
Yeah, it's a perfecto shape, which back in the day, which was, as Dane Cook would say, I think, a Wednesday. Back in the day, the perfecto shape was extremely popular. And Arturo Fuente pretty much brought this shape back many years ago. And this was the very first shop in our... very first shop. Well, actually, it was the very first shop to put limits on Arturo Fuente on this cigar. And I remember that...
that was so popular.
They were so popular. J.C. Newman wrote this article, like, I can't believe it, there's limits. This was before the cigar boom. And this cigar, even though it's small, it's a perfecto shape, this will last a good 45 minutes. And even guys that really enjoy a full-bodied smoke will come back to this. It is a...
It's a staple.
It's a staple. Yeah, it's one of my favorites.
It's one of those cigars that's just been a great short cigar. I totally agree with everything you're saying about the short story. And they were very, very popular for a while. And,
whoops.
And
you see that?
What happened?
I just ashed right on the table. Well, here, the best part is, John, watch out here. We're going to get crazy. There you go. Look at that. All clean, all better. You got to have at least one fail in every video, I think.
Always happens.
Always happens, yeah. But that's par for the course, so I guess I have to be a little bit more careful. What else do you have? I didn't even see that.
I have the Davidoff Magnifico.
Which is the PDO line that we have?
PDO line.
The Puros de Oro, I think that's what it stands for. I can't remember.
It's a pretty new cigar.
I don't know how...
We haven't had them for maybe the last year.
PDO... Mike, how many years have we had those? About 3 years?
They're part of the Camacho takeover, so 3 or 4.
Okay, so...
3 or 4 years.
Yeah, and I think we talked about Camacho being taken over by Davidoff. That's why in our first video, Camacho is in the Davidoff case. Yeah. What do you think about it?
Full-bodied, great smoke. It's more on the Maduro line of the wrapper here, which hasn't been traditional for Davidoff for years, but that's more coming into their line. A full-bodied smoke. The one thing about my experience with cigars is why I like full-bodied cigars, I just love the aftertaste, and I really enjoy been very satisfied. My senses are something which basically kicks me. A mild cigar just does not work for me. So, but I'm coming up with the jewel of the crown, and Ben talked about his favourite cigars of all time. My favourite cigar of all time is in the shop, and it always is, and if I smoked them all the time I will be broke. They are an expensive smoke, and I have.
Let me take a guess. Hold on, I'm going to pretend. The Johnny Carson.
What smoke is it?
What smoke is it? The Padron, 1926.
Number 9.
Number 9.
1926. Number 9.
There it is. And 1926 is the birthday of the father, I believe, is where that comes from. So it's not a cigar from 1926, but they make a 1926, they make a 1964, and it's just wonderful. It is one of those smokes where I burn my fingers. I'm very much a person who I smoke right down to the butt. There's my cigar smoker, and these things I just love and adore. And whenever I sort of walk past the cabinet, and I just gravitate towards it. So I've got to be very careful. I wish I was very wealthy. I'd be smoking these all the time. Actually, Joe, I remember when Joe was coming in first, Joe was kind of smoking cigars that were more in that $4, $5, $6 range. I think when he first started off, and one of the kind of the mantras
things have changed a little bit.
Yeah, things have changed a little bit. Well, all of us. Actually, one of the things we didn't talk about is how many years have you since not been coming in? Well, how many years? When did you first come into Liberty? Do you remember what year that was?
I would say the first time was 2002.
Okay, and then you started working here
around that time, 03, 04. Yeah.
I started coming in I want to say 94, 95, and I started working here in June of 1996. So I'm coming up on 17 years. Joe's already been working here close to at least a year, I think now.
May will be a year.
May will be a year. And one of the things that I remember Joe coming in, and Joe was, it's like all of us when you first start working, you want to smoke a whole bunch of things. But I remember Joe did an event with our owner, Charlie. And Charlie, as kind of like a thank you, said, Joe, hey, here you go. And I think he gave Joe, a 1926, like number 1, like I think the longer one. And I remember Joe, it was like this moment, and I've seen people have those moments, be it like a high-end stereo, a knife or something like that, where they don't really know what they're missing. Probably the best example is when people fly first class, and they kind of go, well, it's not really worth it, the money, until they fly first class, and they can never go back. Or drinking a good wine or a good beer or whatever. So I remember Joe out there was sitting on the patio, and I swear to God, I was like, Joe, you got to be careful. You're going to burn your lip off. You're going to burn your fingers off. And it was like this light bulb came on. And since then, he's been kind of spoiled with the Padrones because
a bit like same experience.
Yeah, it is that good of a cigar. For me, the 26s are great, but for me to have a recommendation to somebody, like if they're coming in and they're saying, okay, I want to treat myself, and I tell them, I said, rather than buying 3 cigars or 4 cigars that are in that $5, $6 range, I always tell them, why don't you treat yourself and smoke just 2 better quality cigars? And like something like the Toro size at whatever it is, 15 or 16 bucks, I said, go for the quality over the quantity. And the 26, it's hard for me to recommend that. I would not recommend it to somebody if they were looking to, they're trying to make a leap and I'm smoking $5 cigars, what do you recommend? I would throw it out to them and say, here is a really awesome cigar, but probably use the stepping stone of a 64 first, and then go up to a 26. Because it's hard. My biggest fear is I'm going to recommend something to them. And the thing is that none of us get commission. We don't care. I mean, it's great that Charlie makes the money for the shop, and that's awesome. But in the end, it's one of those things where I'd rather have that customer come back and say, hey, you really recommended a good cigar, rather than, oh, you pushed some piece of crap on me. I can't stand it. You pushed a Villigary 1980 or what is it, 1888, which horrible cigar, and it's one of those things we literally couldn't even give them away. And that's one of the things about Liberty Tobacco when people come in. None of us work on commission. We work on the idea that, if we have a customer, they're going to be our customer for years and years to come in the future. So if somebody asks me for a recommendation, we're not going to instantly reach for a 26. We might say, well, what have you tried before? Do you have a budget? What are you working with? Are you working with a $5 budget? Are you working with $10? Is price no object? If price is no object, the ones that John has, especially the 26, it's a no-brainer. I'm going to go, right? We just all reach around and say, hey, everybody, what do you think? And they all say, oh, got to go with the 26 for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's funny how your tastes do change, and you can try the cheaper cigars. And I did smoke. I was very much a Quest Away fan for a while, and I went through an Ashton stage where the Heritage,
which, by the way, I like,
which is a good smoke.
I like the Poro de Sol. That was a fantastic, and I still like the Magnums.
VSGs were very popular. I went through VSGs.
I went through a VSG phase as well. Yeah.
So, but here we are now at a Davidoff stage in our lives, and a 26. I think the older we get, our tastes change, and it is a great pastime, and I just love smoking good cigars. It's one of my passions. It's wonderful, and I'm not one of these guys who has a very sophisticated palate where I can describe what's going on. All I really know is something that tastes really good, and when I smoke it, I enjoy the experience. I don't like smoking cigars just for the sake of it. I'm very particular.
Which we do. We do have guys that are like that too. As you know, I mean, there are guys who will buy bundle after bundle of the exact same cigar, week in, week out. We have it with
year in, year out.
We have pipe guys.
That's okay too.
Yeah, that's cool. That's cool. We're not degrading that. We have guys that come in and buy tobacco, and they will literally buy a pound or two at a time, week in, week out, month in, month out. And it's, for me, I look at it and I can't imagine doing that when we have such a variety of other things. Like, you would just think to yourself, let me try something else. But that is some people's gig. We have the guys know I came up with a little thing, which is a little slogan, which is price to goodness ratio, where I say, if that, Charlie, the owner, sometimes he's given me a cigar and he'll say, here, smoke it, but he won't have it's a little game we play where we just take off the band and you hand it to somebody. And John did that for Mike earlier. So the person tries it but doesn't have the same bias that they would if the band is on it. And then I'll smoke and I'll say, this is pretty good. I say to Charlie, how much does it cost? And then he'll say, well, it shouldn't matter. What do you think about it? And I say, well, for $5, it's a hell of a good cigar. But for $15, it's not that good. So the price to goodness ratio is one of those things in the store where people will ask me. And when we have a recommendation list that we came up with, we have kind of mild, medium, and full bodied. But in that same list, I'll have mild cigars like a Gaspert, which is maybe $5 a stick, all the way up to a Davidoff, which could be anywhere up to $40 a stick. And people will say, well, which one's better? And I said, well, how much do you like the person that you're buying it for as a joke? Or, what kind of budget are you working with? So that the person doesn't feel like we're only going to try to push them to one price extreme or the other. Since everybody, especially in San Diego where we are, this shop is very much, we have the whole spectrum in terms of wealth, jobs, whatever you want to call it, income, where people coming in are very working class, but at the same time, you can bump into people. We have people who come in who are on, the city council of San Diego. You have people of all different. We have we see
a few black cards here occasionally as well.
A couple of the Amex black cards, which we also have people like Dennis Prager that come in, so kind of radio personalities, local radio personalities as well. So you have Shotgun Tom Kelly, of course, one of our favorites. He does our answering machine, which we love, Shotgun Tom Kelly. But the thing that's cool about Liberty is that there's a cigar for everybody, and that's one of the things John and I won't be talking about in the videos, which is one of those things where guys say, wow, well, this has a Sumatran-grown wrapper that was picked by blind Sri Lankan dwarf monks who, wash their hands only every third month, and it gives this oil, and that's fine, but I think John, myself, Yankee Joe, Mike, we're basically into, give me the cigar, let me light it up, let me tell you about it. Joe, what do you think about that? True, false? I don't hear any of us talking about the peppery notes, the leather-like finish, and
is our butt getting kicked or not? That's the question.
And
me?
Yeah,
that's all. For me, I like my butt getting kicked.
For me, when I come in on a Sunday, if I'm working, I usually will go through my ritual of, I'll pick out a mild cigar, something like a Gaspert, something like a Davidoff, something like a Romeo and Julieta, Reserve Royale, something along those lines to kind of start off with. Even occasionally I'll go back to a Macanudo just to try it, even though it's probably one of the most popular cigars in the store, and people sometimes say, oh, it's like a cigar with training wheels. But it's important to for me. I like to go through the whole. Yeah, no offense there, but I mean it is compared to something like a 1926 in terms of full body. That line, Cigar with Training Wheels, actually that was from Jim Walker, who used to work here for many years, and it's a great line. But it's one of those things where I like to start off with mild, medium, and full body. So these guys, when it comes time for a customer to come in and the customer says, "Oh, I want something more on the mild side." Ben, come on over here. You know, recommend. Actually, you know what I forgot, which is one of my favorite full-bodied cigars, and actually has the worst location in the entire shop in terms of display, but is without a doubt one of the staples of full-bodied. And you know, what do you think it is? It's the El Rey del Mundo, the tissue paper wrap. It literally has, it's inside the humidor, to the right, around the door, on the bottom shelf, but it's been one of the cigars.
Very popular cigar.
Very popular since I've been working, and the price to goodness ratio is definitely there. I think they range something like $6, $7, $8. Tony Cerrone, one of our customers, he's a fan. He also likes this too, but it's one of those cigars guys reach for, and they sell out no matter. I mean, they're literally the worst location in the store, but it's a staple. I forgot to grab one of those, but like I said, it's just grab what you grab here. So what else do we have to talk? I think we're kind of.
I think we pretty much covered for one of our first segments of talking about the cigars that we like. We do want to cover some other products and look at a lot of other cigars as well over the time and smoke them. Just now, not even halfway through this smoke, it transforms. It's just wonderful, this smoke, and I'm very much enjoying this right now.
Well, that's one of the things that I notice about cigars too. If you are a person who likes cigars, cigars that are, at least in my opinion, if it's a good cigar, it starts off one way, it transforms into something midway through, and it kind of goes through these changes. I remember my first experience, and I want to say it was probably, I can't remember if it was a Sancho something. It was like an A-size cigar that somebody had given me. Actually, my friend Chris gave me, and it was amazing. I mean, literally the first half inch was something. We were watching, I think, the prize fights or something one night, and I was amazed for a 2.5 hour smoke how it just changed time and time again as it went through. And it was amazing. And that's one of those things where some cigars are literally one note all the way through, and if the note is an off note, it goes in the trash. I don't think any of us have tolerance, especially working here. If the cigar is bad after the first, maybe, even if it's an inch, I think most of us that's a dud, and we're going to dump it. I'm not going to give myself 2 inches, 3 inches. Oh, it'll get better. It's gone.
It's done. It's done.
It's done. It's done. Yeah, I mean, the thing that's nice about working here is that we do have access to a lot of nice cigars, but we're not put under pressure to necessarily push any one brand or any one thing. So it's kind of cool. Some of the things that we're going to talk about, I guess, in the future, we'll probably do a segment on various types of cuts, various types of lighters, accessories, pens, not really, knives, that kind of thing. I don't know. From time to time, any kind of thing that we want to talk about. So great. That's it. So for Liberty Tobacco, Yankee Joe, Mike Gallagher in the back. I'm Ben.
John.
Thanks
for listening and watching us, and we'll see you again soon.
Yeah, see you. Keep the shiny side up. Thanks, guys.
Go Yankees.